Chapter 19, Progress. That all knowledge is at once available to the spirit that continues after death is an idea that has had very general acceptance in the past among the believers in an immortal life. This illogical conception was mentioned in an early chapter together with the more reasonable view of the continuance of development and progress on that side. The slow upward climb of the spirit while it occupies the material frame, and the opportunities for advancement and the delights of accomplishment when this spirit enters upon the new day of its existence, are all so well depicted in the quotations following, that no added comment is thought necessary.
Wherever there is life, there is spirit. The development upward is a matter of time, and again time, before the physical becomes aware of its spiritual powers. Think how long the earth people have been creeping upward, and think how low the attainment is now, and how time again must elapse before the world becomes entirely spiritualized. Study the law of evolution, and watch the progress of the human body from its first inception of material life, coming up through various and innumerable transitions, always from the lower to the higher, and you will have a parallel for the spirit evolution which goes on from here. By evolution I mean progress, growth, and ever-increasing perception. You may thus form an idea of the varying life of the spirit, and may perhaps guess the joy that comes from its unfoldment. Life here is still progressing to higher forms, and will finally reach a perfection as yet undreamed of by us of this lower plane. What this life can contain of knowledge, wisdom, and joy is only faintly imagined even by us. I have said that life is progression. Now, what is progression? First of all, knowledge, that is after character has been established. First, knowledge of the earth from which we here all come, knowledge of the conditions there, and the ways of improving those conditions. For you must know that man would still be the savage, the cave dweller, or the nomad, if there had been no inspiration from here. Then knowledge of higher spiritual conditions and the powers that this knowledge gives, knowledge to be used for other lives, sometimes on earth, sometimes on other planets. After this, still increasing knowledge and still increasing power for good. Always giving out. Do not forget that knowledge is to be used for others. And so life goes on and service goes on. Eternity is a constantly increasing growth, and a constantly increasing gift to others.
You speak of man rising from the cave dweller by inspiration from the spirit world. Has man no initiative of his own to rise to better things?
Yes, but it takes many generations to reach the wisdom even of today. If man is left to this slow progress of evolution, the people of earth would suffer far longer the mistakes of ignorance and selfishness. There is an upward tendency which in long cycles will bring man to wisdom and righteousness. But we here are glad to turn ahead the clock of time a little.
It would seem that if this influence is used to any extent, we would see more evidence of it.
You do not comprehend the centuries of growth that lie behind you. You think of the ignorant, the low, and the wicked, but do not comprehend that these are lives that are in the process of evolution, and have not yet attained what many other earth lives have achieved. For evolution has not been one grand sweep of the entire human family, but has gone on by degrees and in places, some attaining much while others are almost at the beginning, some almost spiritualized, others scarcely beyond their animal ancestry. Be patient with the low and material ones, and pity rather than blame them.
There are prophecies of a wonderful wave of spiritualization, that someone will arise to save us from the evils of materialism and selfishness into which we seem drifting. Is there any truth in this?
The world moves slowly, and no miracle is likely to happen. But if you will just study the past and go back far enough, you will see that the tendency is always upward. But whether the tendency can be measured by years or by centuries is something which we do not know. The optimists will believe the change will come soon, but the pessimists believe it will be long delayed if it come at all. We can watch and help as best we can, and then wait. And that is what the world will have to do. Our teachers do not tell us of any coming marvel. Just patient effort, and working for the good at all times, is what we are taught as our part of it.
And the final goal seems as indefinite.
The Creator of all things holds the bounds of life within His power, but we do not know what this highest of all powers allows in the infinite production of life and things. We are moving onward and upward constantly. We can only indistinctly vision what is before us, and our teachers from higher planes have limits beyond which at present they neither see nor know. Can you not see how this stimulates thought and interest? The future lies before us like a great, beautiful, unknown land, and we only step along its borders and look eagerly forward. Curiosity and the desire to know keep us constantly in motion. Motion is life in the material world, and motion is life in thought and in the spiritual world. We are trying to tell you a little of this life as it progresses in knowledge, but we have to leave much for your minds to puzzle over, because we have no synonyms for the various work. We have much that would be of interest to you if we could bring it to your understanding. But spirit activity and mortal activity are so utterly different, it is hard to express them in the same terms. We receive much information of the work of those far above us, and this is an inspiration to us in our own study and work. For instance, these teachers have taught us much of the properties of heat and light and electricity, and their multiple uses and powers. You think the scientists there are experts in such things, but they are only at the beginning of knowledge. On the higher planes, thought has gone forward into new processes and new forms of activity. These are ever increasing. Just as man has evolved from the cave dweller with no implements but his hands, to a powerful being who can navigate the sea and air, and surround himself with incomparable luxuries, so the spirit goes on from great to greater, from wise to wiser. And in all the eternities before us we see no end to wisdom, or activity, or the pursuit of enlightenment. There are many problems at present hidden even from the higher planes. Study and discovery are among the delights here. There is an infinite amount of undiscovered science still before us. We follow the thought of others, and advance step by step, inch by inch, and are held in wonder and awe at the dim visions before us of the powers and forces yet to be used. We are children yet in the infinite knowledge, and we of mortal birth move along in smaller circles than the spirits of other planes or universes. But can you conceive a little of the joy of acquiring the knowledge that leads us into such limitless wonders? Knowledge is growth, and growth is happiness. And all avenues of thought lead upward to infinite wisdom, justice, and love. We are individuals, but we belong in a great scheme of higher consciousness toward which we are all tending. That is the real joy of this life, that it is evolutionary onward and upward to infinite results of which we yet have no complete conception, only dimly perceiving the ultimate joy, wisdom, and affection.
We spoke once of the delights they had mentioned on their plane, and expressed our wonder by remarking that it seemed too good to leave for another.
You will not be obliged to change until you wish to do so, but neither do you need to dread the higher spheres. As a child you would probably have dreaded the high school, though later you longed for it. And that is the way it is here. Progress is natural, following the development of the mind. Many prefer to stay here. We find abundant opportunities for service. We are attracted to the planet we came from and prefer to stay near it for a time. All go on some time, but the time of the change is indefinite and is decided by each individual for himself, at least after a certain degree of advancement is made.
We were talking about progress and evolution in connection with a lecture we had attended. Professor James added this to the conversation through the pencil.
The beginning is a long way off from observation, and the steps upward are beyond human sight. It is theoretical, but not capable of proof. That which can be proved is from the lower orders leading up to man and onward to eternal life. The altruistic sentiment began in the lower stages, with the parental love first, then love of friend and home and country. Then comes the higher development, always, it is true, being more or less mixed with selfhood. But the start is made, and keeps on until the perfection is reached in the love of man and the brotherhood of nations, and that far-off divine event leading upward to godliness and perfect love. It is this that is the need of the world. It is this that should be emphasized. The good of all rather than the advancement of the individual. We here are earnest beyond expression, because we see this need of the world. To emphasize the true life, the life which there may be the beginning of here. The missing link that is of the most importance is the brotherhood of man. To us it seems of the first and only importance. The links of the long chain binding man to animal below and to spirit above matter not so much as the perfection and the drawing power of this end of the chain.
In our various metaphysical speculations we spoke one evening of having no knowledge of a beginning, of an end, or of a purpose.
You might say the same of us here. But the eternal riddle is more nearly answered with us, for we have evidence that the people of the earth do not have. Would you like to have all eternity spread out before you like an open book, with nothing more to hope for or evolve? Is it not infinitely more interesting to grow and increase in knowledge, and yet have things far beyond you beckoning to new endeavor and wider knowledge? What would eternity be like if we could absorb its mysteries in one grand sweep of eye or brain? Is it not better as it is?
No doubt it is better. But some intelligences somewhere must have acquired all knowledge, for there has supposedly been an infinity of time in which to acquire it. But Mary was not to be cornered by any such speculation.
Well, if this is true, it is all the more interesting, because we may someday come into recognition and acquaintance with the wonderful spirits who have absorbed so much of heavenly knowledge.
But if perfection has been reached somewhere in this infinity of time, what is that but nirvana?
You carry your imagination too far. There is no limit, we are told. The story of creation is not finished. As we all grow toward the light, these future creations will continue. You are asking too far-reaching questions. We are both getting beyond our depth. Don't you see what I have told you so many times, that we do not come into all knowledge at once? It is the selection of our study, and it is perseverance in learning that count. We do not try to take up all things at once. We have been here long, many of us, but have scarcely mastered any one, two, or three of the arts of this life.
Possibly we are asking questions we should not. Possibly we should work out the answers ourselves.
No, you may ask, and we will answer when we can. But we do not know it all, and are willing to tell you when our knowledge fails.
But the big subjects still had attraction for us, and not long afterward we were asking about the creation of the universe.
Creation is a big subject, too big for us at present. The only thing we can say now is that out of the existing conditions the earth, the planets, the whole universe was formed according to existing laws. But from what time and what cause preceded those laws we cannot clearly explain. Remember, we are novices yet in spirit understanding. There is an eternity before us in which to learn. Why try to rush past the intermediate spheres of knowledge and reach for something which is at present beyond our comprehension? We here are also subject to immutable law. But within that law lies our liberty, which is so great we do not ask for more. Mary is no theologian, and we have need for faith even here. These things are still a mystery, although we believe in the far-off final good that shall come even to the earth. We are not responsible for the earth. We cannot explain the miseries of its life. But we know that compensation exists on this side, and that beyond us undoubtedly lies the explanation which is already reached by wiser minds than ours. Shall we talk of something else? We are getting beyond our depth.
But again we came back with a big question at another time. Is it irreverent to ask if God is a growing, a progressive ruler? Some thinkers here believe that.
Mary says, "We do not know. But we cannot see why it is not reasonable for the great spirit of all to develop more and more, following the law of progress which we see in all who have spirit life. We are glad to perceive the knowledge here, so glad to be a part of the growth, so infinitely satisfied to be moving onward and upward as we increase in learning and in power of discernment, that we can hardly understand the dissatisfaction over the lack of knowledge there. Or perhaps we might call it the dissatisfaction caused by the unbelief in divine truth and eternal progress. You are living in a time that tests the souls of mankind. But many are responding to the tests with increased power, wisdom, and love. Is it not worth the price, if, out of this time of trial, higher truth, nobler effort, and spiritual attainment are born? We see it so from this side and are eagerly trying to help the cause of truth and unselfishness and brotherly love in the world. The limit of the human mind is the beginning of the spirit mind, and the people will find it so someday. Be patient with the human mind and its human doubts. Even doubt is better than indifference, for through doubt people think and question, and are on the way to truth.
We were talking with friends one day on various philosophical subjects, and among other things, the position of the supreme ruler of the universe, whether he was apart from it as a director, or was in it and in nature stimulating its advance. We inquired through the pencil that evening and were told.
We will try and answer what we believe to be the truth. God is. He has wisdom, intelligence, beneficence, and is above all, in all, and through all, in his knowledge and wisdom, but not in his personal presence. Will you accept the belief as we are trying to give it? For modern philosophy is creating a godless world, and that means a backward movement in all that is highest and best. We do not know God even here by sight or touch, but the power and the wisdom that come to us most certainly come from an intelligence and power infinitely beyond our own. And we here look to this superior wisdom and benevolence and call it God, the Father of us all.
Do all who have advanced beyond earthly attractions there believe as you do?
Yes, all here who have come into the spiritual conception and knowledge and experience of this life believe as we do, except that as they develop more and more their faith and their reverence grow into higher forms.
If a person here who had a firm belief in God, but conceived of him as John Burroughs did, for instance, if such a person should be a psychic and be receiving communications as we are, would his teacher tell him the same things you are telling us? What I am trying to get at is this the general truth on that side, or do we attract teachers whose opinions largely coincide with our own?
Wait a little, we wish someone else to come.
Then, after a moment,
W.M. James is here and says,
Such a man would probably attract those whose thought was not antagonistic to his own. I do not mean that there are those here who deny that God exists, but that in their larger ideas of the first great cause they would lead him into the true thought by such arguments as would make him feel the harmony of our belief and faith. I could tell such a person all the bypaths and wanderings of my own faith and its final adjustment to the reality as I am conscious of it here. It might be an example of the different trends of human thought and its final acceptance of the truth in the light of this life, in the illumination which the spirit receives when once its earthly shackles have been removed. I was never at rest in my belief, and worked out many logical byways for human intelligence. But when I came over, these were forgotten. The truth is supreme. And when once here, all earthly arguments fall away. We here believe in an infinitely wise and great power incarnated in some spirit form finer and different from ours, yet in a way corresponding to our own. We may come into some understanding later which will alter that belief somewhat, but not, we believe, to any vital extent. We look to Christ as our elder brother, and he is far higher than we in wisdom. Yet he looks above and beyond to the infinite Spirit whom he calls Father. Can we do better than to follow his example?
Finally, Mary tried to give us a lesson in another way, to teach us not to be in a hurry to learn everything. Dee started it by introducing a visitor who she said wished to talk a little. They wrote for him.
I was a dreamer on earth and wondered about the unseen and unknown. When I came over here, the mysteries seemed greater than I had ever dreamed, and many of them are still unexplained to my mind. One of these is the vastness of the heavens and the limitless greatness of the Creator of all things. I cannot yet conceive of the infinite, either in space, time, or existence, and I wander through the heavens looking for something to explain these things, something to anchor my belief. Mary says that this is not necessary, that if I will move on patiently and normally, knowledge, understanding, and the power of belief will come. I think she wishes me to write this because you are attempting to reach out for infinite knowledge and understanding when you should rest in faith and hope, and wait for the illumination which she says will surely come when you are ready for it. She says we do not begin to climb from the top of the ladder. We place our feet firmly on the lower round before we begin the ascent, and one by one the rounds will carry us upward, and we will ascend almost without effort. That is her theory, and I guess it is a good one.
Mary says, his words indicate a truth, and I think it a good piece of advice for you. Don't you?
Has he gone?
Yes, he has wandered off again. He is a young man and eager to learn, and will grow faster than he believes. He has not been on this side long.
Mary, I believe you were putting up a job upon us. I don't believe there was a man. Mary replied very emphatically.
Will you know that he is a person, and he did drop in about the time I heard you talking about the many mysteries of life. I did put up a job on you, when I found he had been taking the same way with rather unsatisfactory results, and he seemed to guess that he was my mouthpiece. But what difference does that make? You got the advice all the same.
But how would we ever find out anything about these great problems if we did not ask questions?
That is all right unless it makes you unhappy or interferes in your belief in the wisdom and goodness of God, in which case it would be a serious obstacle.
The only evidence of that goodness that seems positive here is the general tendency upward that is shown throughout Earth's history.
That is one of the proofs of the Spirit of God manifesting itself upon the earth. Yet, the very fact of allowing human nature to try its own experiments may also be a proof of his presence. For how can you tell what is designed even in seeming ill? There is a plan, never doubt that, for the final perfection of human life. The suffering will not last forever, and through that suffering good may come, will surely come, we believe. Character, self-control, wisdom, overcoming evil with good, the power of choice, free will. Are not these worth suffering for? Would you be an automaton instead of a thinking being, capable of choice, and capable of choosing the right to an eternity of knowledge and growth?
Chapter 20, Circles and Planes. Enthusiasts in all branches of learning or investigation often use words in their writings and descriptions that pertain almost exclusively to their special work. These may be words in common use which have acquired new meanings, or they may be words coined for more specific description. Spirit communication has its share of such words, and some of them have been used so long and so freely that hardly anyone needs a definition of them, such as medium, guide, control, plane, aura, and astral. Of these the word plane is perhaps the most frequent in our records. We have always wanted to know the what, the why, and the wherefore of all these things, and it was not long until we were inquiring about the seventh plane, the 20th plane, etc., and how they differed one from another. We were told,
The astral plane is the one nearest the earth. Beyond this are the great outlying spaces and the innumerable higher planes to which the spirits may ascend when prepared, and when they desire to go.
what constitutes a higher plane?
I think you will understand it better as a sort of higher grade, like college after high school. It is a different plane or sphere or space where those of a certain degree of advancement can remain for a time. These spheres or planes are separated more by spiritual advancement than by distance, though the latter is sometimes great. We ascend as we grow, or we remain to teach others. But it is all normal, and like the different grades of advancement in college or school, if I may use the comparison. Each grade has its peculiar work or degree of advancement, not set by any rule except that of congeniality.
Mary brought another teacher one day, and after he had given his message we asked, "Do you come from a higher plane?"
I do not call it a higher, I call it a different plane. There are higher planes, and there are different circles on the same plane. The latter would better express my place. It is not as easy to progress as you may imagine. We have to study for advancement as students there study for the higher grades. We can choose any circle on any plane on which we dwell and remain there as long as we wish.
Someone has said that 30 years was the longest time spent on one plane.
Someone was wrong, as a great many someones are wrong, when trying to describe the spirit world. We use plane to express groups or circles interested in the same kind of work, and we use it also to express a higher sphere. We can all stay as long as we wish in any circle, or any plane, or any sphere.
Are these planes separated so that one could speak of them as first, second, third, etc.?
No, not that, any more than you could express with mathematical exactness the state of a man's soul. It is all in the progress, and some move upward in one way and some in another. Try to think of spiritual progress in other terms than distance.
Mary made this a little more clear one evening when she said,
We are on the plane nearest the earth, and are more nearly in touch with human lives than the higher ones. We love our work here and can stay as long as we wish, or we can go to a higher plane and take up new work and new studies. But in going on we would lose our closeness to those we love, and who have not yet come over. And so we stay and wait and work and love, and try to win our earth friends into happier thoughts of life and death, as you call them. Of life and progression as we call them. I had no one especially whom I loved or whom I could help, but you must remember that I came over ignorant of all that pertained to this life, and so I became interested in my work. We will go higher of course, some time, but we will have joy and companionship and work that will be congenial wherever we go.
Where is up, or higher?
That is a hard question for us to answer, because it is an expression of spirit rather than of space. The higher spirits are the ones who have progressed to greater knowledge and acquisition in all ways, and we use the expression higher to convey that meaning to you. They do not occupy the same plane that we do. You may call it out in space, or up as you choose, for it is a condition rather than a position. Yet they occupy a different position in the great surrounding space, and they are more etherealized, and would not easily come to the denser atmosphere of this lower plane.
In answer to a similar question at another time, Mary said,
The earthly heaven has no limit so far as we can see. The plane we are on encircles the earth in a broad band of ether that you would think limitless. But we know that there are other planes and other circles. They may extend beyond this universe, taking in all the other planets, so far as I know. I only know that we are in limitless space, and that other circles or planes are in limitless space beyond. By limitless space I mean, of course, limitless as far as our perceptions are concerned. There are limits, perhaps, but we do not see or feel them. Heaven is big enough for all. You will never be crowded.
Many teachers have come to us from higher planes, brought by Mary to tell us about life and conditions, in answer to our questions. One of these teachers said,
"We wish to tell you of the life of the Spirit as it progresses from plane to plane. For the grades of spiritual evolution are infinite in number. We will begin with life on the plane next above our own, where higher science is taught, and where many are trying to find answers to problems that confront intelligence there. Life on other planets, with their varying conditions, is one of these problems. You do not know the laws of life on the more ethereal planes. You do not know the teachings nor the occupations, and it is these that we wish to bring to you. We will begin with the ethics of the higher life."
Would they not still be love and service?
Yes, but love and service are expressed by different activities. Life on the higher plane is like this, only more spiritualized, just as this plane is like Earth life, only more ethereal. The higher plane expresses love and service still, but in higher degree and in more spiritualized activities. These activities may extend to other planets or to other universes. We go to higher planes when we choose, and we go to other planes below us to teach them these higher truths, if they wish. All sciences are taught here: history, chemistry, astronomy, mathematics, biology, and many sciences that the Earth has no knowledge of as yet. I belong to a higher plane, but I can move to those still higher in pursuit of knowledge, and return to my own plane to teach that knowledge. We are more free as we ascend, and visit many planes far higher than the one we especially inhabit and call our home. But at first, the earthborn mortals would only be confused, like a stranger in a strange city with unaccustomed manners and habits. The freedom of moving to other planes is therefore confined to those already advanced.
Mary said one evening,
We are told that the higher spirits believe that they have knowledge that the world needs, and like the rest of us, are trying to give it. But life and love are the same in all spheres, and unless they can tell something of their occupations and knowledge acquired on those planes, they are teaching what we who have become versed in the life here are all trying to give: service, love, knowledge, growth. These are the foundations of all our teaching.
You communicate much by thought impressions. How far away can these impressions be made?
The higher planes use different symbols, different expressions, and messengers who come to us must learn those expressions and interpret to us. Like an interpreter of foreign languages, perhaps. Distance is not so much a barrier as the difference in occupation, thought, and expression. We might impress one in our vibration thousands of miles away, yet might fail to convey our message to one near us.
In the chapter on messengers, I have mentioned the fact that many mediums claim to have teachers from past ages. If these ancient sages have really advanced to a realization of spiritual truth, and really do send their wisdom to earth, it would seem that they are hardly in direct touch with the receiver here, if the following is correct.
Will you try to take a message from another teacher? He is from another plane and wishes to tell you of some of the studies and activities on his plane. It is the history plane. And perhaps he can tell you how knowledge comes down through the spheres. He is not a writer. I must write for him. He wishes to say that messages from sphere to sphere, and from plane to plane, are coming and going constantly. And many times, century-old or thousand-year-old communicants send down their expressions or their knowledge without coming themselves. You must understand that the etheric body becomes more and more etherealized as it ascends, and so comes less and less to lower planes. That is the reason that they send their intelligence, or their messages, through by spiritualized messengers on the different planes. That is the way that communications of history of thousands of years ago can come through, and how Egyptians, or Babylonians, or Hindus, or other far-off personalities can communicate still with Earth.
This is further illustrated in the chapter on messengers, where are recorded several messages so sent. After the above paragraphs were arranged, I asked about the apparent contradictions concerning the freedom of movement between the planes.
There are a few especially gifted and versatile ones who can move from plane to plane, although these are limited to the number of planes, as you might say limited by their own ability of understanding or of progressing, we would say. The messengers have a relay system, as you would call it on Earth, the messages being repeated from one to another without the necessity of moving beyond their power of progression.
Sis asked how an old friend in the spirit world had found her.
The attractions on this side are more numerous and more subtle than can well be explained. But the desire to hear something from Earth made him wander to the different circles which were communicating with Earth. And these are not so numerous but that he could visit them all, and so he found this one. He heard your voice and was interested. He asked your name, and that is the way he found you.
There have been many people brought to us, or who have wished to talk, friends, teachers, visitors, messengers, etc. We asked one of the friends one day, "Do you belong to this circle?"
No, not this circle, but I come here to get news from Earth.
A good many seem to come.
Yes, it is quite a listening post, as the army boys used to say. All are welcome. Sometimes they can only listen, but now and then one wishes to talk, and that is the way I happen to be communicating with you.